Could we, okay, it's recording, good. So thank you all for joining today. This is, we are building together this Conscious Food Systems Alliance. We have already had a couple of workshops in the past, and now we are moving into a new series of workshops today on the Grassroots Perspective on this work. And on Friday, we will have another workshop on our strategic vision or vision of success. On next week, on the 23rd, we will have another workshop on the evidence basis for what we want to do and our theory of change. And finally, on July 5th, we have another workshop on the community of practitioners that we want to build around this agenda of conscious food systems. So today we will discuss and develop ideas for how CoFSA can leverage, Conscious Food Systems Alliance can leverage and support grassroots work on consciousness and food agriculture systems. We'll have three presentations, one from Justus Arm and Nana Wu from Sechem, based in Egypt. Then we'll have Katie Weintraub, I hope it's well pronounced, Katie, from Sinaldo Valley in Brazil, and then from Teresa Corsaro from the Instituto Maniva in Brazil also. Each presentation will be 20 minutes. And then we'll have some panel, some question and answers and discussions. And we might consider even moving into some smaller breakout groups at some point, if that makes sense, before sharing eventual feedbacks in plenary and closing this 2 hours workshop. The main questions we will work today, we'll ask to presenters is, how do you work with consciousness in your projects, initiatives? What are the key lessons that you have learned that you can share with us? And how can we leverage and support your work with this Conscious Food Systems Alliance? But before we move to the presentations, I would like, and I'm grateful for Mindahi Bastila to be here with us. Mindahi is an indigenous, I would say even elder from his wisdom, maybe not yet so much from his age. So we are really happy to have Mindahi. I think he will have to go after offering a first blessing introduction for this session today. So thank you all for being here, and Mindahi, up to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dadahiade Tiku Chi Nana Sidara Na Yoho Yu Dadahiade Dihova Dinikyoki Chi Kaya Ati Dini Kyonki Ti that Nihmewa, with the permission of this sacred direction, we greet the feather serpent and Father, Son. And we ask to this direction, and we deliver our prayers to ask for clean ideas for the new dawn that we have been waiting for. Has been a long line, a very long night, all these years. We're waiting now for the fifth son, sixth son, to deliver this new time and space for us, for this message, for Quetzalcoatl, the feather serpent, to come back again. We are in this time and space, this 13-year cycle. May 3rd, 2013 ended the long account of the Mayan and Toltec and the Aztec calendar. We're in the most difficult times for this cleansing, and we need to be prepared, remembering who we are as human beings, why we are here. Because we are just another species, not the peak of the creation. Father, Son, give us this blessing. We acknowledge you every single day, greeting you. Dear Hamadi, thanks for reminding us the love you have for Mother Earth and with your family. That's the biggest star, Venus, Mars, and other celestial bodies, Dear Hamadi. Now, to the south. Na, Yoho, you. To this direction, and we pray for the big jungles, for the Emerald Forest, the Amazon, for the Lacan jungle, for the Congo jungle, and all the lands around Mother Earth, and all the peoples, and all the sacred animals, for the condor peoples, for the white lion peoples, for the phoenix, and the beautiful sacred plants that are in this direction, and the deserts. We acknowledge all the allies and all the sacred places, sacred sites in this direction that give us this strength to continue enjoying this life, this time and space that is teaching us so much. It's teaching us how to live in peace and harmony with Mother Earth, with peace and harmony and in dignity among our families, our communities. This is the time and space that we must remember that we are family, and communities are composed by family. We give thanks to the web of life. Ikamari. Na, yoho, hiu. We read to this direction, to the direction of the mystery, to the black place to the mystery of the direction of the stars and the direction of the feminine. We acknowledge from the origins and from the original instructions that we were given from the beginnings, that we are here just for a while, not forever, just for a while. While we are here, we need to meet our responsibilities. We need to grow with our talents. And our responsibilities are those that were put in ourselves as the light changing for transcendence. Because there is a law of the universe, a law of Mother Earth, a law of origins. Thanks for this opportunity to be here in this world, this beautiful Mother Earth. Now to the north. Na, yoho, yo. Ise mo ikehechi pada shushap chikotten hikwada mescalero chikwada iroquois inu and all the peoples in this direction, the Raramuri, the Wararika, and the spider and the bear and the duck peoples, and also the Hikuri peoples and the mushroom peoples. We greet the entities and allies in this direction because are giving us so much the right direction. And this is the time for the eagle to come together with the condor. This is the unification process that we have been waiting for. This is the time to meet our prophecies, and we need to work a lot together. Unity in the diversity that we're bringing together all ancestral wisdom that we need to carry out our duties. Because information and knowledge is not enough. There is a lot. But we need this wisdom to carry out our things. And remembering that we are just another species. And we need to slow down, stop and reverse all the damage that we have created to our minds, to the spirits, and the material world. Come on in. Na, yoho, nyu. Toher mekin zaki, toher mekin moi. Hamadi makimu, hamadi makitadi mewa. To the Father, heart of Father Sky, to the universe, Zaki, life itself, to the origins of the waters, origins of the soils, origins of the wind, and origins of feelings. Origins of the wind that we are breathing. We give thanks, we give thanks, we give thanks to Mother Earth. Now, Yohut New. Napaya, napaya, napaya. Nangingu 50 shimo kibupu. Nangingu 50 shimo kibupu. Nangingu 50 shimo kibupu. This is the time, and the time is now to work together, and start up together with Mother Earth. For many, it's the last time. We need to come to an agreement, joint agreement that we need to work in communities. There's no other way. And communities is not just human beings. Communities are the sacred rivers, the mountains, the creeks, Mother Sea. Communities are the trees around us, insects, the beings that who live in the lakes, in the rivers, and the rivers in the sky, the rivers underneath. We are composed by the sacred elements, so we need to pay respect and give respect. We are the reflection of the winds, of the sacred soils. We are the reflection of sacred lands, sacred territories. We are the reflection of the sun. Today, we ask for clean ideas to bring together all these sacred elements, so we remember how to work in community, how to work with meaningful way of being, way of thinking, way of feeling, and way of doing. Ikamadi, brothers and sisters, may this gathering, may this workshop around grassroots communities be blessed. Go ahead, brothers and sisters, with this workshop, and we can learn from each other every single time. We need each other. Ikamadi, kamadi, kamadi. Thank you.
Thank you, Mindai, for blessing this session and remembering that a Zoom call can be turned into a sacred space. Thanks for helping us to connect with the wisdom we need, the wisdom of your ancestors from the Otomi Nation in Mexico and many others. Thank you very much. We will pass on now to Nana and Justus from SECEM, one of our partners, to offer the presentation on the great work they are doing integrating consciousness and culture in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas, for introduction, and also thank you very much for the. Can you hear us all?
Yeah, please just speak quite loud, and that should be fine.
Okay, thank you also very much, Mendahi, for this mindful and very touching introduction. Maybe we can introduce ourselves quickly.
So my name is Nana Wu. I was born in South Korea. I'm a traveler, whereas the human development, this kind of project is needed. And then I also myself to develop myself. So I've been living in Palestine, Israel 2 years, and then 7 years in Europe. And I moved back in Egypt 2.5 years ago. And I'm working in the human development department together with the economy of love and then co-program at SECEM.
And I'm Justus Harm. I grew up in northern Germany on a biodynamic farm. Now, I studied afterwards, after my school career, I studied sustainable economics and was working for Demeter, and now I'm working here in CCAM. Also since 2.5 years. I started around the same time as Nana did, and we are engaged in the same project, which we will also share with you a little bit about. And it started with, so I don't really know how much Helmi already shared with you about the CCAM initiative. I think he joined already a couple of calls, and you are aware of the initiative, the work, and the impact, and maybe also the CCAM vision goals. Is this right?
Maybe not for everybody. Workshop where he extensively presented, probably not so many people here attended, but you know, in general, there might be also some understanding, but then you can go quickly into your presentation. I think it should be fine.
Okay. Yeah, we haven't we haven't prepared slides. I think we are sharing just a little bit of our own experience. Maybe we can share a few pictures with you in the end of people we are working with, and I will share a link in a bit. But to start off, to also lead to the go to the first question that Thomas was sharing in the beginning: how do we work with consciousness? And CCAM is working in this topic already since 45 years, almost 45 years. It started with Dr. Ibrahim Abouleish, who came to this desert land and started with biodynamic agriculture, started with a local community. He did several social, cultural programs with the people here. He engaged the people in biodynamic agriculture, and he was talking about the economy of love in this regard. And economy of love, Dr. Ibrahim Abouleish, he passed away in 2017. And when Nana and me, when we came to CCAM in 2019, we were starting to create this much lived by CCAM, the people in CCAM, working and living in CCAM. We started to create this idea of an economy of love into a standard, which in the end can go beyond the CCAM initiative itself, because CCAM is, of course, an economic and social body, but it can, or it should not, this is the idea, the vision is that CCAM should not grow exponentially. It's built like a prototype, and the idea is that now the way how we work in CCAM, that we formulate this in the economy of love standard and communicate and transport this beyond the borders of the CCAM companies. And especially here in the beginning, we were asking the 4 questions, which are very much related also to the consciousness topic. We wanted to ask all the CCAM employees and all the CCAM customers if they can answer the question, what if they buy a product in the supermarket, can they answer the question, what is the impact on the people who worked on the product, the people on the farm, the people in the supply chain, the people in the distribution? What is the impact on the environment? If I buy a product, can I answer the question, what is the impact I have on the environment? And the question, what is my impact on the economy, on the value distribution of this product? And the last question we ask our consumers and employees is, what is the impact we have on the individual potential unfolding? And here also Nana worked very strongly on an education program for the employees, for the customers, touching on those 4 dimensions: the ecological, economy, the societal, and the cultural dimension. And earlier I spoke with Thomas and Alice, and they were very interested in the cultural dimension. So as Nana is the expert in the cultural dimension, I would love to lead to Nana.
Hello. So as I shared in the introduction time, so I have a reason why the Korean girl coming to Egypt and working with our colleagues from the Islamic background. So there's a whole, this story is kind of continuing from the second story, this multicultural, intercultural dialogue, and then we can find a new solution with the meeting each other. So with that, I assume you know a little bit background of SECAM. It's a huge organization, 40 years old. I used to mention it. And then this now to Economy of Love, this project to a certificate body. And we add into the certification body. So how to bring this awareness. At the end, if the education department is not supporting people to know, because I'm from also Korea, I grew up with a very materialistic perspective of worldview. Education, even kindergarten, even university. And I really understand also in Egypt, in the more traditional form, from the education, again, it's not like people to think freely themselves, people to feel freely themselves. So my passion is to come to a different kind of culture, and how can we, from the this potential we have, if we know what's happening really in the food supply chain, do we have the same choice? But if you don't know about what's happening behind what you consume about food and then any product, eyahaga means anything, we don't have a choice anymore. So the education, the department from the SECAM and the Economy of Love, we collaborate together. And that's the very beginning of SECAM. Ibrahim Abulesh, our founder, he started it the day one. Already the farmers or employees, any background, not only about manager role or cleaners, he was giving kind of talk about more Islamic philosophy into the sustainability, because this is their language also, Islamic religion. So religion is not separate, something you pray in the other place, and the sustainable lifestyle is separate from the European kind of the concept. So he was really integrate this aspect together in the conscious work. So now we are the second generation. So we try to also this combine about this spiritual practices or religious practices language. So I work together with my colleague who is younger generation, also the spiritually in the practice very motivated and devoted. So this aspect, and also I'm from the multicultural experience, how to bring this kind of self-awareness. People can have a more choice, which means this mindset training. And again, another question maybe you already can share with us is how to be open-minded, to know what we know is true, how to question it. It's belong to the, again, educational department. So again, to be a conscious consumer, conscious producer, this is our question, also second long history, and also my personal question, our younger generation. Without separating from educational part, people cannot shift their paradigm yet. At least there's some kind of information, true information, some kind of activity they can experience, some artistic also, not only about lecturing way. So we designed the program, which is the local community, which is more than 90% is Islamic philosophy. And we also have a Coptic religion and diverse also in a bit more minority way, but how to inclusive, find their own language, also the younger generation. We want to see the change. So how to motivate more younger generations, they can have a voice. This is how we designed. So now we would love to share some pictures, because I know the question time is at the end altogether, right? So I will share some pictures. You don't see our only younger generation, just as my face. So this human development program in SECAM, which we call core program. and also economy of love educational program, which is serving to shift people's paradigm to be a conscious consumer and conscious producers. Always Zoom is difficult because it feels like always one direction, but I try to
second.
Meanwhile,
okay.
Because maybe now is time we can share some photos they can see tangibly.
Can you see our screen?
Yes.
Because you were very interested earlier in how does the core program look like on the farm, or the core program, in other words, also the program of economy of love, where we work actively with people from the supply chain, starting with the farmers, going on. And here, this photos that you see here is one of the CCAM companies, which is producing natural pharmaceutical products. And so here, all of those people in those programs are mixed. So it's not only the management, or it's not only people from certain departments. It's really from all kind of angles.
Yeah, so we provide especially like, imagine like it's also second vision, imagine 10% of your working time. I don't know where you are working exactly, in institution or company or different places. 10% of your working time, you can have this kind of human development courses. Yeah? And economy of love, we provide like ecological kind of topics, or how to be a conscious consumer, what is story behind, how to taking care of well-being in the cultural life. So we provide these kind of courses embedded in the working life. That's the main thing, economy of love. And then second, we're trying to do. And then also to how to evaluate our employees, they feel more healthy environment in the work life. And special second is in Egypt. And it is, I'm talking about factories. Yeah? Of course, farmers and agriculture is one side, but after this, if it's not direct vegetables kind of supply, all this food consumption, organic dates, maybe you consume a lot of organic dates, organic garment, where it come from, who made your clothes, who made your food, maybe it's one of our employees. Yeah? So again, like for our employees, we're trying to bring awareness how to be a conscious producer, but more in the language of well-being. We don't want them to just work. One example, the dates department, you saw the picture. They're working 6 days a week, 8 till 5 o'clock, taking the seed out from the dates. Imagine like how many dates they are producing every day to somebody in maybe other places. Yeah, exactly this picture. Other places, they want to eat dates without seed. How amazing they are working for somebody also have kind of better, kind of consumption life. So I tell them always like, consumers, they appreciate your work. But is that true? So this kind of awareness building is very important, both consumers and the producers. The consumer, they know about stories behind a product, which is also economy of love. We are working on impact trace tool, which you can share this part.
Yeah, I shared a link in the chat, just quickly to add to what Nana said, and you shared about the dates example, because with economy of love, and this is also what CCAM is trying to live, is the topic of transparency. So
can you share this? Is this sharing?
This is shared, yes. Can you see our screen?
Yes, you can.
Yeah. So we are really trying to bring now all products. So CCAM is the first company, but of course, in the end, we hope we will reach a lot more companies also with this approach to make transparent the products we consume. So who produced the product, to give the farmers a name, a picture. and really describe also the process, what's happening in the supply chain. What is the impact that we have by buying the dates, by buying certain products on the supply chain, on the people, on the nature, what packaging is used, what is the impact actually. We see nowadays a lot of organic Demeter products that are the most sustainable products, but packaged in plastic, right? So what is the impact then in the end? And also what we communicate here is the footprint, how much, so talking about the true cost, how much CO2 are we emitting or sequestering. And this, so you could have a look yourself if you would like, but this is what we try to live also with Economy of Love, this mission of transparency, making visible the people that are behind those products.
And so continuing one last image, this is also, we have our video. So can you see? This is a 4-dimension, it's like now analog kind of hand drawing version. So Ibrahim Abuleish, our founder, he talked about this 4-dimension base of life, the wheel of balance. And in the video, he said, when you earn money and working in the economy, only this part is modern life. They work and earn money, we work for money, and this, if it's in balance, we have to make a balance into the, think about the environment and ecology, produce more, buy more organic produce and organic vegetable and this ecology. And then when you work with the environment, you have to also develop yourself, the cultural life, education, health, so you can make a balance. And also society, it's not only about your development, whole society has to develop together. And you earn money, after profit, you work and develop, and this is, sorry for this little bit hand drawing version, but this is wheel of balance, which is the principle of Economy of Love in our educational program. So this image, I want to also give little seed for our discussion for later. Can you see noise? I think
yeah, so I think questions are later, right?
Yes, we will keep the questions for after the 3 presentations. So thank you very much, Nana and Justus. We'll now pass it over to Katie. Katie?
Yes, Katie.
Katie, thank you.
Great, thank you. Can I share my screen over here?
Should be able, yeah.
Can you guys see it?
Yeah, we can see that.
Okay, great. So it's great to go right after SECEM, because SECEM was one of the organizations that inspired Thais, who's the founder and director of Sinal Diwali, to start Sinal. And she's a good friend of Helmi and has been to SECEM many times, but she always said that SECEM was one of the best examples of really integral development, and Sinal was inspired by SECEM. So I'm going to speak, I just prepared a presentation with some photos because I think it's, of course, easier to show. But just to give, I talked a little bit about Sinal, but Sinal Diwali is located in the Atlantic forest of Brazil, about 50 kilometers from downtown Rio. And we are a center for the regeneration of ecosystems, communities, and individuals. And we are guardians of 200 hectares of land of Atlantic forest. About 70% is forest, and the rest is degraded land that we are in the process of restoring. And Sinal, essentially, we prototype and teach solutions for the regeneration of soils, food systems, communities, and people. And because everything that we do at Sinal in our living laboratory on our campus of 200 hectares is something that can be replicated and scaled throughout this region. Because where we're located, the Atlantic forest is one of the most degraded biomes in the world, with only 12% left of original forest cover. And the region what we are is kind of in the border, the buffer zone between the urban sprawl of Rio de Janeiro and some of the last remaining areas of Atlantic forest. So where we are is really at this border. So how can we come up with solutions that integrate the nature and people? So I think it's really important to say, so Thais, who founded Sinal do Vale, created Sinal very much with this idea of how to bring consciousness to action and consciousness to leadership. And she always says that the quality of the inner state of a leader affects the quality of the actions, outcomes, and impact that leader has. So after many years of working in, high level policy and big NGOs and Rio 92 conference and Agenda 21 and implementing all of this. And always what she said was that she was so tired of all these meetings where everyone gives their opinions and does their action plans, but that it never gets put into practice. And beyond this, that there's this lack of this idea of the inner state. So she created Sinal, and regionally that began with hospitality, with bringing leaders to come and be able to connect with an inner, our inner consciousness, and how to get people out of that day-to-day lifestyle and connect in a more profound way. So now after almost 10 years, Sinal has developed into many different areas. Change agents was our education, hospitality, which is a source of revenue, but also part of our mission to bring people to have more authentic relations and more authentic action. Resilient infrastructure, and then of course, soil, food, and forest, which is all of our work related to permaculture, agroforestry, soil regeneration, and of course, promoting local food systems here. And I'm not going to go into details, but Sinal is kind of like an incubator. So we have all these different prototypes and experiments, and some of these experiments then turn into bigger projects or into actual enterprises in all of our different areas. But what I want to talk today, of course, based on the topic, is how we work with consciousness in our work with food systems. So here you can see a photo of our permaculture garden, the mandala garden, and all of our team members here inside it. And I think one thing I just wanted to talk about is a lot of my personal experience and learning in this topic of bringing consciousness is all about my experience with our team. We have a team of almost 20 people, very diverse, from people from all over around the world, local people, different disciplines, different experiences. And I've learned a lot about how we work with diversity and I think one of the things that is an important thing that I've learned is about seeing it to believe it. So this is a photo of the land before it became a beautiful permaculture garden. And it was very difficult in the beginning to get to convince some of the farmers that we work with that why we were going to do non-traditional methods and do permaculture and the compost and this weird mandala design. And instead of, the normal industrial way that they were accustomed to doing. Many of them had worked in coffee farms and that used chemical pesticides. And so what I learned is that you can do all the talking you want. I don't know how many consultants had come to Sinal to talk about this and that and how you should do agroforestry. And there was a lot of people didn't really believe it. But then once we actually did it together, and this is a photo of when we actually began building the garden, everyone being involved, all the team members being involved. And then this is what it looks like now. And it took time. And now we have the team of local workers who maintain this garden are 100% convinced that this is a much better way to do, because now there's actually much less work because the soil is regenerated. It doesn't matter. You don't need any other inputs. It doesn't matter if it rains, if it doesn't rain. We have a great irrigation system and we've regenerated soil. So once you see it, you believe it. And also I think something I learned was you have to bring the right people. Here we have an instructor here, Georgian, who is a guy from the Amazon who has worked for permaculture for over 25 years. And he was able to really relate with the local farmers. We had, had different consultants and people would come and he was one of the first people that was really, he was from the same background as them. He could communicate in the same language as them. And it was a fundamental thing for actually being able to transform their minds about why we should do farming in a different way. And also something I've also learned, we were talking about this a little bit with Alice and Thomas last week, is when we talk about consciousness, you know, sometimes we think about, oh, bringing meditation and bringing practices. And sometimes those practices work and sometimes they don't. And at CNOL, we have such a diverse group of people with different religious beliefs, with different backgrounds. Sometimes the traditions that we want to use don't always work. But one thing that Thais and I talked about is that having deep dialogues is something that always works with everyone. And so a lot of personal development and a lot of bringing this inner part has a lot to do with these deep dialogues that everyone can express how they feel about things, why they don't understand something, what the experience is. So that's been an important tool, I think, that we use at CNOL. And then just a concrete example of not the deep dialogue, but more of changing consciousness is our jackfruit project. And the jackfruit is a really great example of something that there's a lot of preconceito, how do I say that in English? Prejudice, because the jackfruit is this big smelly fruit. It is, when it's sweet, it has a very strong smell. It's massive, it falls all over the ground. And at CNOL, we started this jackfruit project where we use green jackfruit to be able to use like a jackfruit meat. Probably a lot of you know it. And so a lot of what we've had to do is work with with people's beliefs about jackfruit. So whether it's the landowners who have the jackfruit, whether it's the people who we need to convince to eat the jackfruit, we've done a lot of work in the last few years about trying to change that perception. So you can see a picture of some of the landowners up in the corner. And when we did a workshop with them on how to use the green jackfruit, and it's been amazing because they had no idea that you could use it in its green form. So we did these workshops, we showed it, and now today there are people there who are now using the green jackfruit, actually selling it. There's a woman who's a cook and she uses it now in her meals. And we've also, you know, shown to restaurants. You have to show them that there are all these different other possibilities to use it. We've also done we do a lot of workshops. We use mindful eating, which is something that a lot of people have been able to connect to from all backgrounds. Why when you actually slow down and pay attention to your food, why maybe the taste of a carrot is actually sometimes much better than the taste of a fake industrialized cookie or chocolate. And I saw that with a lot of people, that mindful eating was actually a very, very interesting practice. An experience, I think we use food at CNOL, whether it's for hospitality events, whether it's in the workshops, showing that there's another way to use food that we can use. We do a lot about food waste and how you can use the core of a pineapple to put a salad inside, or you can use all the different parts of a banana. We use the banana peels. And so whether that's in the workshops or whether that's just the people from the companies that come to stay at CNOL, the thought leaders and the leaders, also they eat the food and there's a connection and you have an experience and it changes people's consciousness. And of course, we work a lot with kids. And I think there's something special about CNOL because you have this immersive experience. It's really easy to talk about how you should change your beliefs about food, change this, change that. But when you're really there and you really feel things, and so these are some of the kids from the American school here in Rio, and it was some of the first time they'd even seen a chicken or been able to hold a chicken. And so then we're talking about the industrial industry and why we should change things and why sometimes a vegetarian option is better. All of a sudden, all these kids had a totally different perception and were so much more open to this conversation after they met the chickens and played with the chickens and held the chickens. And the human connection, I think that's something that we try to bring in always. I think when people come to CNOL, there's this feeling of authenticity. And when you have that human connection, it is so much easier to talk about change things and change people's minds when you have that human connection. I also think it skipped a slide, but anyway, I missed and I didn't get to show the picture of the culinary workshops, but that's a really big thing that we do here, whether it's with the jackfruit or showing the other local abundant foods that we can use. I think we've seen a lot of our big impact in terms of changing people's consciousness about food has been through these workshops. And getting to people to actually try things, eat them, do it themselves, come from the garden, see how it's done, then seeing the compost and seeing that whole experience and really live it, whether it's just for a day or people who stay here longer. I think that's been something where I've seen really people change their minds. yeah, I think that's it. Sorry, that was a bit quick. And I guess I'll be there for questions after.
Thank you very much, Katie. So, and all the nice photos and stories and your personal experience. That's very nice to share. Thanks. We can move to the next presentation then with Teresa, also from Brazil.
Yes. Well,
The floor is yours.
So good to be here, because seeing those works and those people, and so many connections actually with everything that we are doing. We can see the little dots that we are touching, all of us. I would like first to thank so much Mindahi for the introduction. It was so powerful. And I think it has to do with the things I'd like to talk today, because the video I'm going to show at the end is about my, like the project that I had before pandemic. It was in 2011, 2019. And it was deep in the Amazon, and where I've for the first time in my life, I met indigenous people in their land, not in the urban circumstances. So I'll start talking about the questions that you send. I think those were really clever guidelines for us to reflect in our work. So what is consciousness for me at this moment? I think, and to present myself a little bit, I'm a chef, I'm a designer. First of all, my degree was in design. Then I shifted to my passion, which was cooking. And I worked as a cook for 20 years in my sister's restaurant as a chef, until I met the slow food movement. And when I met those guys, it was in an award they did in the city of Oporto in Portugal. And when I saw, the projects that they were showing, they had this award. And I realized that food was such a powerful thing and such a difficult thing as well. First insight. The second insight is, what are you doing about this? So when I came back to Brazil, I had that big restaurant. I was a partner of my sister, and I look at everything I was doing, and I started to be really curious, anguished about how could I change my work in a way that it could connect more with everything that I saw in the presentation of Slow Food Movement. And, one of those magic things, I was invited for a festival of food in the northeast of Brazil. And all those festivals, foodie festivals and chefs festivals, they have more or less the same pattern, which is they have the local food and they want the chefs to work with the local food, as if the chefs had a special gift that the local people didn't have. And that for me was kind of offensive, and I didn't like very much this frame. But I look at the list of the products they gave me to work with, and I started to see that I didn't know many of those products. They were Brazilian regional products, and I started to ask, "What's this?" And the guy said, "Oh, that's manioc." Ah, okay, it's from manioc, it's a subproduct of manioc. But what about this one? It's also from manioc. So half of the list was about manioc, which is one of the main products of Brazil, and I didn't know. So I was very shocked by this, and I started to try to, make dishes for the festival. And I, at the same time, thinking about how come I'm in this business for 20 years and I don't know some of those products. So the next day, I should come with a dish. And I was having my breakfast in the restaurant of the hotel, and suddenly I saw this woman in the corner, in like a dark corner of the place, of the restaurant, of the hotel. And I saw that she was making one thing that it was kind of the first bread of Brazil before the colonizers came, which is called tapioca. It's not the same tapioca that, you know, English American people use or Asian people use. It's like a crepe, like a pancake made of that manioc starch. So I got to this woman and I asked, could you please teach me how to do this and explain to me where this flour came from? And she said, this is not flour, this is starch. Don't you know, aren't you those guys that walk around with those white suits, so fashionable, and you don't know about your this? And I said, no, I don't. And she said, all these things, they come from manioc house. And I said, what's a manioc house? And she was, you'd never been to a manioc house. So manioc house is the process place where manioc cassava is transformed into their subproducts. Many subproducts. And this root that is originated in the Amazon was domesticated. First of all, it was a wild tree that the indigenous people domesticated into a crop that they could grow. And they managed to take off by processing the poison, because it was a poisonous tree. And they managed to take off the poison by processing and transform that root into the base of all meals of all the indigenous people in Brazil. So that was done like 3,000 years. It was a big process, and nobody knows exactly when it started, but they found some proof that manioc existed. Manioc flour existed more than 2,000 years ago in the Amazon. So there I was in 2002 in a food festival, looking at something that I didn't know that has been in our country, in our culture for 2,000 years, more than 2,000 years. And then I started to realize, from that little moment of not knowing, I started to realize that I had a lot to learn. And who would be my teachers? The farmers, the producers. So I started this path of looking for the producers, and I made a small documentary in 2004, which is in the YouTube. It's called The Manioc Professor. And it was really funny because when I was there, I was going there to make this film. The film was about processing manioc. So I would call it manioc flour. So I was interested in the products. But when I got there and I met the guy and I spent 3 days with him, everything changed in my mind, because at the end he made this packaging, special packaging, completely sustainable, about fibers and leaves, very technical, very design. So my design formation came like, wow, this is pure design, very important, because it keeps the flour for 1 year unstale. And this meeting for me was a life-changing experience, not only because I realized so much wisdom there was in the fields, in the rural areas, but also because I realized that this match between cooks and producers, farmers, fishermen, was a magical match. I realized this match was a connection. Like when I heard Mindahi, beautiful words, I wrote so many of them. We are the reflection of the wind. So this meeting is about connection, lost connections. So Instituto Maniva is a non-profit organization I founded in 2007 after this big aha moment, where we have actions to make this link. So our mission is to value the traditional food and remake the links between farmer, fishermen, cooks, and people. I don't like to call them consumers. I think consuming is a very weird word. So just people, eaters. So for this, before Maniva, Instituto Maniva was founded, I didn't know what I was going to do really, because I had this restaurant, this big restaurant that was like my income to my life. But I managed to like divide my time between the actions of the restaurant as a chef and the actions on the nonprofit work. So for me, every time I went to the rural areas and I visit some farmers, some fishermen, some people of the earth, it was like a big classroom for me. It was, and I started to take people, like the university that I was formed was they invited me to make a speech about sustainable eating and sustainable cooking. And I said, okay, but I have a condition. And I said, my condition is that I can take this group to the fields, because for me, there's no meaning of talking about this and they don't have the experience. Like we saw in Katie in Sinal, and it's so important, the experience, because it's a non-rational communication that happens, and the insight goes into our bodies and our souls in a different way, and it stays there and it changes us. So I took this group of 70 design, like students of design, very urban guys, you know, urban people, to visit the farmers for the first time. And when we got to the farm, I asked the farmers to become the teachers, because then we divided the group and they divided themselves. We didn't do anything. Like the farmers, it was 5 farmers. They stayed like in line, and the groups were like connecting in a way, like instinctively with each of them. And after there was the lines were formed in a very organic way, those guys, those teachers of the earth, took those groups, those small groups, to their land, to the land that they kept all the day, you know, treating and feeding and planting and harvesting. So from that experience, those designers, those students of design came back to the school, and they started to think differently and to propose different solutions that they would share back with the farmers and show the farmers what they've done. So for me, this kind of back and forth actions and learning with the you know, the indigenous people, the people that were here, like with the ancestrality really strong yet, because we lost this link with our ancestrality. We have these little bubbles of our families, but we have this ancestrality deeper and deeper. So I think that's the magic of this connection. I think that's the way, when you ask me, the consciousness for me is being conscious that we are not conscious, and that we have to look for that in connections, making connections with the past. So I wrote today this little words that is destiny origin. So for me, consciousness in this time of the earth, of our humanity, is about finding the destiny in the origins. It's not a coincidence that we are listening so much to the indigenous people now. Can you imagine how many years we've been without listening to them, without listening to their words and paying attention in a different way, which was characterized like a folkloric thing, or like something that didn't belong to our world. And it is our world. Like when Mindahi said, we are a family of the earth, but we don't know and we don't practice that. So we have to visit each other. We have to listen to each other to make more connections. And our actions, they have to be very practical, like we've seen here, some very practical works, but based on a non-practical and a human connection, which is giving time to learn from each other and to know each other. I think time is the thing that we are lacking most in this time of history. For consciousness, for having consciousness, we need time, and we have to make this time of connection. So this experience, I could talk about my experiences, which were sometimes with the people of the land, like farmers, sometimes with the people of the rivers. But I would like to show this one, this special one, which was the Gosto da Amazônia, which is Taste of Amazon, which was a project that I started with, and in the middle I left. And I left because I didn't agree with the very commercial interest that was being put, not by the people that wanted to sell the fish, but by the minds that were thinking about the project. So I think it was very imbalanced. Okay, they had to sell the fish, but it was imbalanced, the importance of our connection, our feedback, our exchange between chefs and the fishermen. And it was very much put in the way that, you know, you have to sell to have more money, to have more goods, and to be better. Like this very old-fashioned idea of being happy. So I'd like Alice to show the video of Taste of Amazon.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm just getting that up.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, do you see that now?
Yes.
Great.
O problema principal, que era o problema do manejo, né, que o peixe tinha ficado quase em extinção na década de 80, e através do manejo, que foi uma junção do saber tradicional dos indígenas com o saber científico dos pesquisadores, a espécie não só foi salva, como ela começou a ter uma superprodução. E aí se viu nessa superprodução uma oportunidade de melhoria de qualidade de vida dos ribeirinhos indígenas, pensando que esse projeto merecia e precisava de um campo muito grande para ele poder ser exitoso, para ele poder cumprir sua função de comercialização. Foi feita uma marca, que é o Gosto da Amazônia, sabor que preserva a floresta.
O projeto Gosto da Amazônia ele tem a finalidade justamente de buscar ferramentas de mercado, de maneira que as pessoas interessadas no estado, os empresários locais, possam valorizar o produto e, quem sabe, também somar esforços como parceiros para que o produto alcance outras regiões.
E esse projeto aqui traz luz para algo que é fundamental, que é qual o impacto social e ambiental que a gente pode ter em cima daquilo que a gente consome.
Acho que o manejo, ele proporciona a proteção do território e a valorização do território, onde essas famílias manejadoras estão habitando. Então, se eu protejo o meu território, eu estou protegendo o pirarucu, mas estou protegendo uma série de outros recursos naturais que são essenciais para a subsistência e para a renda dessas famílias.
A gente veio fazendo a oficina, tanto que o Instituto Mamrauá, o Instituto PHSU, várias pessoas, né, foram para lá estudar e trouxeram essa técnica para dentro das nossas aldeias e com esse manejo para ajudar a qualidade do peixe. Então foi isso a maior aprendizagem também nesse manejo que a gente teve.
Interessante porque tem momentos muito diferentes dentro desse projeto, né? O primeiro momento é para os chefes de cozinha, né, descobrirem o que é o pirarucu. Então a gente recebeu as peças, a gente recebeu um formulário para preencher dos detalhes de sabor e textura e fomos nos familiarizando com aquele pescado para começar esse processo de conhecimento do peixe. Em seguida teve um momento das oficinas, então depois de conhecer os chefes propuseram algumas receitas, foi um sucesso absoluto, tudo cheio, as pessoas muito interessadas, não só nas receitas, nos chefes, mas na história do pirarucu. E aí a partir daí fomos para a terceira etapa, que é a viagem propriamente dita, que foi a visita local. Então os chefes e o coletivo do pirarucu, representantes desse coletivo, viemos aqui para a Amazônia para conhecer de perto, não só a pesca, mas o povo que pesca, como é que é a importância disso para eles e tudo.
Minha experiência desse encontro com os palmarim, eu acho que é aprender o que é a Amazônia.
Hoje em dia não dá pra gente não pensar que comer é um ato político também. E o que eu sirvo tem importância assim no restaurante e pode influenciar outras pessoas, espero que influencie bastante. Porque na verdade o que eles fazem é que eles estão guardando a floresta. E eu acho que isso é a cadeia sustentável que a gente tem que defender o máximo possível. O peixe é bom, é versátil e a gente está trabalhando com um produto altamente sustentável, como poucos outros.
O projeto Gosto da Amazônia ensinou muito mais do que o manejo do pirarucu, falou de conscientização, o trabalho em conjunto dos indígenas, dos palmari. A gente realmente precisa aprender muito com eles ainda. Tenho certeza que essa viagem mudou a vida de todos nós e eu acredito que é só o começo desse projeto.
A partir daí vai ter os 2 momentos de mostra desse produto para o público grande, né? O primeiro momento vai ser no Rio Gastronomia.
Então, vamos começar, Mônica, com pirarucu, mas para eu chegar até o restaurante, a gente está tendo que navegar aqui pelas águas do Amazonas. Eu estou aqui com 2 índios da tribo dos palmaris.
Vai ser uma super oportunidade do público conhecer o pirarucu, conhecer receitas que foram desenvolvidas nesse processo e também levar o pirarucu para casa, porque a gente vai ter o produto para vender. E depois, num segundo momento, um festival no CADEG. Acho que pela primeira vez vai ser homenageado um produto totalmente nacional brasileiro.
Embaixador de pirarucu é tatuagem na alma, né? Acreditar, não tem fim da causa.
E aí, depois desse processo dos eventos, o que a gente espera é que esse peixe entre literalmente, né, nos cardápios do Rio e fora do Rio.
A nossa perspectiva é que a gente dê continuidade nessa relação que está se iniciando aqui agora com algumas instituições parceiras, né, e que a gente busque ampliar também para outros estados.
Receber vários chefes de cozinha do Rio de Janeiro e mostrar vários modelos de prato, é sem palavra para explicar e que deixa a gente encantado. Fico muito agradecido em nome dos palmaris e tudo que nós fizemos aqui foi uma pequena parte da nossa contribuição com o nosso trabalho. Fica aí o abraço de todos do palmari através das minhas palavras. Muito obrigado.
Esse projeto traz uma percepção fundamental: qual o impacto social e ambiental que a gente pode ter em cima daquilo que a gente consome. Ele pode ser uma ligação, uma ponte entre a Amazônia e o resto do país, de tal forma que outros produtos igualmente importantes e que possam gerar um impacto positivo possam chegar até os mercados consumidores do Sul e Sudeste. E esse é o começo de uma história que pode ser muito maior e a gente vai estar apostando nisso.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Would you want to say something else before, Teresa? Sorry.
Não, é só dizer que o que eu sorry.
In English.
I was in the Amazon, sorry.
You brought us there.
Just to say that I think consciousness, the theme of our meeting here today, is a work in progress all the time. Like we are more conscious now than we were when this meeting started. And I think we have to allow ourselves and give space for the people that are not heard so much to grow this consciousness together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Teresa. It was really a journey, your presentation. I think we need that at the moment, a bit of traveling to the Amazon. So yeah, I think we can open the space for questions and answers to the 3 or 4 presenters that we have had so far. You can feel free to jump in the conversation, or you can use also the chat. We can take a few questions together. Have a first round. Myself, I'm wondering how, I think all 3 of you probably talked about reaching the customers. In the case of Teresa, I think it was quite clear when you work with chefs, so these are not so many consumers, let's say it's indirect connection. But I'm wondering, how do you do that, for example, in SECAM, because consumers are everywhere and usually they are not so much interested into getting into a workshop, or how do you reach out to them? How do you connect to them? That would be one question I have, but I'd like to hear also other questions before you answer that one. Also, would be great to have all your ideas about, how this could mean for our initiative, this Conscious Food Systems Alliance, how we can support it and tap on your work. I'd like to hear other questions, also other reactions.
Yeah, I can start.
Sorry, Teresa, maybe we wait just a bit. I see Janine Yezi raised her hand. So
okay, sorry.
Let's take a few questions also before we answer some of them, because there might be some threads emerging. Janine.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all. Janine Yazi with International Indian Treaty Council. I want to thank our presenters for everything they shared this morning. Very beautiful. I especially appreciated the last presentation and a lot of things that were named about co-learning with Indigenous peoples in these places and building solutions from that place. With that said, I feel like a huge challenge for us, especially for Indigenous peoples located in developed nations, is that so many of these projects tend to be packaged as like capacity building and educational projects that are brought in from the outside. And even in those partnerships, we're having to struggle to validate our own histories and why we've moved so far away from our conscious food systems that are more ecologically, biodiversity, sustainable, and regenerative. And for me, like when I don't see things being named, like the ongoing resource colonization, about the lack of land rights, about the lack of protections for Indigenous peoples, are in translating some of this work and the learnings from it into actual policy that helps protect our communities from corporate capitalism and forms of monoculture and large-scale agricultural development. I don't see it really leading towards the type of transformative shifts that we need at the scale that we need it. And it was named that we don't have time. We don't have time to do a lot of these things, because to do a lot of these things, it takes that time to build those relationships and build that trust. But I do think there is an opportunity to scale out and scale up these things if we can address the root inequities that keep resources from going directly to producers to restore their traditional food systems. And that needs to be done not just in so-called underdeveloped nations, but also within developed nations themselves, which are often like the places where a lot of these protections and these policies that have shifted our food systems to these large-scale, unsustainable types of processes come from. And yeah, so my question to the presenters are like, what type of work has been done in that way to protect the rights of the local farmers and producers, and to magnify those rights and extend them to people who may not be within your partnership, so that these types of projects can be scaled out?
Thank you very much, Yanene. Let's see if we can have one or two other questions before we give, we ask our presenters to respond.
Thomas?
Yeah.
I guess one insight I'd like to hear is that I'm constantly aware, and I think it was earlier on somebody said we need to be constantly conscious of the fact we're not being conscious. And so that sort of loop that we're going through all the time exists as well for the people we're talking to. So how do we, I guess, how do we explain that this time we hope it's going to be different? You get my point? There have been so many attempted links with Indigenous people. Even that phrase is a terrible one. I remember seeing a presentation how getting Indigenous peoples as representatives within the UN took a very long time. And there was an argument over whether it was Indigenous people, singular, or Indigenous peoples with an S on the end. Because Indigenous people meant that the governments could choose which people they were, and Indigenous peoples was open and meant everybody could come in. And of course, in the end, the latter one won through. So my question is, how do we frame what we're doing in a way that it will have, it'll be trusted by the people that we're dealing with, given all the experiences in the past?
Thank you, Simon. Yeah, maybe we can start having some answers from our presenters. Would like to step in. Teresa.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, first of all, thanks for the questions. They are very good to make us get more conscious. Rights of the producers, the question of Janine. I think this is one of the major concerns because, and it has to do with the other question as well. But the thing is, in this project, Taste of Amazon, we had funding from big corporations, big organizations. So everything was done very, very detailed. We have money and time to lose time into those details to be able to not make mistakes. And especially, and that's answering Simon's question, especially listening more than speaking. Like there's an expression in Brazil called place of speech. And I thought that this was an expression, universal expression, but it's not. I just realized it was created by a Brazilian person. So the place of speech makes a lot of difference. And if we, instead of thinking that we have the solutions and going to those places with the solutions already working in our heads, if we shift, if we change the perspective and we are the students, we are the learners and they are the teachers, and let them speak, maybe we don't need even to speak at all. Like it's very, very, what I mean is most of the people that has been humiliated and suppressed in history, they know what they have to do to get out of that situation. But they don't have opportunities, they don't have place, they don't have a place of speech. So I think our job now is to listen much, much more and try to think in which way our perspectives, our opportunities can help them to lead their ideas and their perspectives. That's my point of view now.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Maybe there was I think we could give the floor to Sekem, Nana, and Justus, yeah? And all the others prepare your questions, or you can even use the chat to react or whatever.
I mean, about the second question, the scaling up, that's the one of the reason I was looking for organization, which is a bit more bigger scale. I work in a small scale organization, NGOs in Europe and then from Korea, but I thought where I can practice a little bit, how can I tangibly see this practice? So I will just share about a little bit more story about Sekem. Of course, it's founded in 1977. One Egyptian founder, he kind of bought the land. They started as a small scale, like family business. But now we have 2,000 employees. We have 5 different factories working in Sekem. So we are not anymore small scale like organization, like 2,000 employees. And when they make a profit out of the agricultural land or the factories and the companies, they start to build medical center because people need this medical system, the health system, our employees. We talk about 2,000 people. And they need a school system. So it's within if you really focus on need of the people, so from the company agriculture, organic agriculture, biodynamic agriculture, into the factories producing the food and organic garment, into medical center, and then school. And then 10 years ago, he founded also university called Heliopolis University for Sustainable Development. And we have 6,000 students already working in this principle and vision. So scaling up, I'm also learning from Sekem, what is the need of the people and different organizations, find the co-partner, and we create mini society within the country. So we are not, somebody mentioned about us only the educational focus, but still it's the focus because main of the heart of the Sekem is a human development. It's not about money or profit maximizing. So younger generation come, we create also economy of love projects, so we can have this Sekem model can be multiplied in a different context and different country. And then now we created also different center for organic agriculture, center for sustainable education, or economy of love projects. So it's kind of total movement is growing. So now I think total we are working with the 4,000 employees together with and then 500 different farmers from Egypt, trying to convert to the organic and biodynamic agriculture. So it's small scale, but it's kind of implement this kind of web of society. We are creating the social fabric. Who created this vision and then collaborate together, and not anymore. Of course, we are based on Egypt and Islamic culture.
Sorry, I think we have lost Nana and Justus. Yeah, they have a black screen. I don't know if you can hear us, Nana and Justus. Okay. Katie, I don't know if you want to share meanwhile while they reconnect.
I think the only thing I would add is maybe what you were talking about, Thomas, your question about, oh, they're back. Hello.
Sorry.
See?
Yeah. I mean, the perspective of scaling up is also my main personal question and Sekem's question, because now our Sekem organization vision is 2057 in 40 years, how to make 100% like all Egypt in the country scale to also kind of promote this idea. It worked well with the 4,000 people and then one university and one company, but this can support in the country first in Egypt. So that's what we are mainly working on, scaling up in the country that cover the whole one country, and then maybe this can inspire by other Islamic maybe country or other European country or other kind of nations also, maybe from Korea. So this is how we kind of spread our vision and idea into the bigger scale.
Thank you.
I would also
Nana.
share the most recent Sekem report, the sustainability report of the CCAM holding. And there you can also see what Anna just mentioned, the impact that CCAM now has in the different dimensions, and also the companies that work under CCAM, and especially the CCAM goals, the vision goals Nana was talking about, that are really focusing on the different topics of health, sustainable agriculture, integrative health, sustainable agriculture, education, and so on. The link is in the chat as well.
Maybe Nana and Justus, I had this question about how do you reach out to consumers? You know, how do you, I don't know, aggregate them, and are you able to educate them?
Actually, my voice is second. Past years, we are embedded into the conventional also marketing realm. Of course, we sell our stories from our workers, how we work, how Ibrahim Abule started it, and then this is one stories we are also kind of promoting. But we are same as a conventional market. If you go to the big scale like Carrefour and these places, you will see the second product also. But economy of love, how we work, I think somebody mentioned about, again, the small scale. So we go to the shop and we kind of let ourselves know about our educational program. So small scale, people can come and experience, so they can mouth to mouth to kind of share our idea and vision. So we go to the city like every week.
So yeah, and CCAM is, or one company of CCAM is market leader here on the local market in the herbal teas. So you will find this kind of CCAM teas in every small shop anywhere in the country. And so this is one impact we have on the local market. And about export and local share is, so CCAM is exporting 1/3 of its production to mostly the European market, and also US, Russia, Asia, and so on. And two-thirds is sold here locally. But of course, the organic, so the core of CCAM is the organic biodynamic production and the fair trade, as Nana mentioned, the story also behind the products. And that's not that well, the people are not very much interested yet on the local market. So with Economy of Love, we also want to tackle this topic and really make the people aware, and try to encourage them to ask more questions about the background of certain products.
Thank you. Maybe Katie.
Yeah, what I was just going to add to your question, Thomas, about, Teresa's done it through the chefs, but what are the other ways of reaching consumers? And one thing that, I didn't talk about my presentation, but was this whole idea of how we're now trying to work about bringing jackfruit to the kids at schools, and how that's a whole, I love that Teresa says the word consumers is very strange, because it is very strange, eaters, but there's this whole group of eaters through the schools and through kids, that if that consciousness or the awareness building or this change in habits starts earlier, which we all know, it makes a big difference. And so that's something that we're now starting to do, is doing these taste tests with the kids. We're working with some nutritionists to try to see how can we use jackfruit in ways that the kids like and that I think are interesting. And so thinking about more ways to do that through this big group of eaters that could be starting earlier on.
Thank you, Katie. The floor is still open for more questions, or even comments. If some people want to step in also in the discussion, sharing their thoughts on what has just been said. Otherwise, I'll be happy to hear your views on how, and the presenters, but everyone here on this call. So what does this mean for Conscious Food Systems Alliance? Well, we have some thoughts. Of course, we think we we could, for example, try to partner with those people that I've talked, and they have as a training center or a local hub for these experiential journeys. On the one hand, on the other hand, I'm also wondering, you know, how do you see this initiative could best support your work, just tap on and support your work. So I'd be happy to hear your thoughts on that also. Yeah, and probably, you know, I feel probably want to build this community of individuals that believe in this vision of conscious regeneration, conscious food systems. We will have a session on that on July 5th on how do we build this community where it can be a place for connecting and sharing. So happy to hear your thoughts. I see Jamie popping up here. Is that because you like to talk, Jamie?
Actually, I had, before we jump into that, although you know, I think that's a good way to go, I had a question for Katie about their program, a specific I didn't get to ask before. Is it okay if I ask that,
sure.
Thomas?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wondered whether you could offer any more details on what kind of conscious listening practices you did, or the kind of you mentioned mindful eating, and I wonder whether there are particular like programs or details of the structure or curricular that you use for those kind of practices, the actual practices of working in dialogue, or yeah, anything else you could share.
Yes, of course. So we've done different formats. The photo I showed and the mindful eating one I talked, we did a 6-month course with a group we recruited. It was mostly local women here from the region. And there was like every month there was a different, like we always had one nutritionist and one chef. And so the first half of the course was always the nutritionist taking some theme, whether it's about, you know, fats or you know, sugar or whatever, and she would do a workshop on that for about an hour and a half and talk about it, and almost always do some activity with mindful eating. And then the second half of the lesson, then they would that was in the classroom, and then they would go to the work with the chef, and then the chef would take that kind of basic idea, if it was about, you know, carbohydrates, and then she would do her whole lesson using a local food like green bananas and how you can substitute green bananas for starches, and then all the people would learn about how to use it. So it was kind of like this combination format of half nutrition, using the mindful eating, and then going down, actually doing it in practice and learning how to make the foods. And it was like a 6-month course where they would come each month to learn about it.
And is that the program that you mentioned, the dialogue component? Is that, or is that something else?
Okay, so then, yeah, the dialogue component I was talking, that's more about, well, there's 2 parts of that. One part is that we've done some workshops that they're called active citizens, where it's with local leaders, and they come and they spend a 4-day weekend, or 4 days here, and we do all these different workshops, and a lot of it is related to, it's like, there's 3 parts: myself, and it's all about the stuff identity, then you and me, and we do a lot of stuff with dialogue and interpersonal relationships, and myself and the community. And then based on that, then they design projects for their communities. So we do a lot of that part of the dialogue. And then also dialogue is just something that we use, and this comes a lot from Thijs, who's the founder and director here, who does a lot of the human development aspect here, is this deep dialogues with the people who work here, whether it's the volunteers or the local workers. And that's kind of more just an organic part that is really at the essence of Sinal.
So would you say that most of the human development stuff that you do is with the staff and the team at the center, or are there parts that she does with those that come to that 4-day workshop?
I think it's both. And then we've also done entrepreneurship workshops where we had young people here for 2.5 months, and she would also do a lot of the deep dialogues and these kind of more retreat meditation and things like that, or with the retreats. We kind of use it in lots of different formats, whether it's the long-term people like me who's been here for 6 years, or people who come here for 1 or 2 days, just in different formats. And
do you have any details available of what kind of theory that she uses for her like human development stuff? Are you aware of what she calls upon to develop those interventions?
Yeah, different. I mean, she comes from a Buddhist lineage, so a lot of stuff from Buddhism, but also, I mean, we were telling Thomas that she published a book called Global Leadership, and it's a bunch of different articles of different methodologies and different thoughts about how to bring human development into leadership. So if you're interested, I can send some materials. That might be a way for you if you want to deep dive in.
Yeah, that sounds appropriate. And the SECM team, I noticed on their website, have a focus on sort of holistic thinking, and I wondered whether you'd be able to say what is taught to help people develop holistic thinking. I didn't quite get that from the presentation. Do you? Is there a particular framework or something, or practice?
And when you meant about SECM, one is our companies, 5 factories, our management group and the leadership group, and then our co-workers. And one holistic thinking is also research department in Helios University. Because it's all part of SECM and then schools. But I'm myself working in the more company realm, so I can share in this aspect within the company life. So holistic thinking, like for me, like there's 2 different directions of how we work. Is maybe it's related with before the presentation. When you mentioned about indigenous culture. So one, my colleague Hadil, she's working into Islamic philosophy and sustainability. So holistic thinking also they already have in their local culture. Yeah. So how to embed it? So we kind of sustainability, how we teach the methodologies, we bring some hadith and ayah from the Quran, which relate with the ecological or economical, how do we support each other, or cultural or society life, not in the terms of the, like a UN vision goal, but we translate this one the Islamic philosophy way. So we embodied this holistic thinking meant not only about one perspective about yourself, we have to think about the nature and then others. That's the base of our holistic thinking, is this 4-dimension way of thinking. Because normally in the modern life, everywhere in the culture, only about money and economic, and then this is the good thing. If you ask, why do you work? We work for money. So holistic thinking bring the aspect when you work, is work for people and the nature and then our community. There's no such a thing, we work for money. Money doesn't mean anything, money itself. So this shift has to be happen. That's the holistic thinking in this 4-dimension way of thinking, the pattern. So that's
yes,
we try.
I remember, yeah.
But I also bring some, when I learn in England, there's a different activities, artistic tool, dancing, also movement and acting, storytelling, that is our material, and painting. So through these activities, we bring this holistic thinking by doing the artistic program. It's maybe a bit more Western perspective. I also train in Europe also, but also to integrate with the Islamic religion, this language. Already they know, they pray every day 5 times. So these 2 can match art and then religion. So that's how we bring holistic thinking, not lecturing, but through these 2 practices, the main our strengths. Does it make sense, art and religion into holistic thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I have many more questions about the details, but that's really enough for now. Thank you so much. It's for both Katie and Nana. Thank you. That's inspiring to hear.
Perhaps I could add from the UNDP point of view that we've often found that saying to people they should become thinkers or systems thinkers either makes them run for the hills, or it makes them think, well, I already think that way, which is what Nana and Justus have just said, I think. So we tend to try and focus on working together as a system, and so you work that way, and then you sort of by osmosis learn to be a systems thinker. I think it's probably quite a bad idea to start off saying, okay, we're all going to be systems thinkers, because the vast majority of the room will turn off at that point. So the osmotic learning is the process we use, I think.
And I could add that I really appreciate what you said, I think, and Nana, how holistic thinking often has to do with local cultures and or traditional wisdom somehow. So I think sometimes we are having this conversation with some people in UNDP that works on that, and I'm writing an email at the moment. I was saying maybe, you know, because people find it abstract and not very culturally relevant, and I think often, you know, you could call traditional wisdom and go back, and that would connect you often to holistic thinking. So I really like that. We have 10 minutes left. I'll be happy to hear about your views, you know, how we can, it's really a short time to discuss that, I realize, but still, you know, if, how we could, you know, embed that into this alliance, into our work. I'll be happy to hear your views, or, yeah, or any reflections you had along these lines. And you know, it can be whoever feels wants to step in. Or Katie.
Well, I was really inspired by Teresa's video, and I think that video shows exactly what sort of has to happen for every supply chain in a way, where you know, whether it's bringing the chefs, bringing local people, having this journey. So, I mean, I don't know where the alliance is going, but, you know, a dream could be to, you know, do learning journeys like that Teresa showed in different areas, for different hubs, in different, you know, food chains, because you both get a concrete change and also a way to include many different people and see the whole process. Because I think that's what we know. It's a whole process. There's a time frame. There's all these different actors that need to be involved. And I think the video beautifully showed how you do that, how you transform one thing at a time like that.
Can I add? I think the commerce thread is not the most important one. Like today, I receive messages from the chief that lives in the middle of the forest. And I also send him messages. And for me, this is the most powerful objective. That is not the objective of the project. But why? Because then we are connected. It's all about connection. I think we have two ways to go. One is to become a group, like all the people that have the same wish to change in a certain way. And the second thing is to go back to the origins and to learn from the origins. And you can do that by communication, and internet, in fact, is a great tool to do that.
Thank you, Teresa.
I also contribute, share the thought in this direction. How do we collaborate? And because one thing is now is burning in my heart. I really agree with you. Also, we have to be more localizing, and then, you know, conscious way of, you know, thinking about food and supply chain. But one thing, the reason I came to Egypt is always when example about this. So second, we produce water bottle, yeah? And I work with the people who create this water bottle, which is 17 years old boys, who parents send them to work. And there's many other these people also part of this conscious the supply food chain. Yeah. So once when you focus on the small scale, of course, our vegetable is local. That's the best. Of course, we have to make it more localizing, and CIA project with the how to. But actually, the reality now, if you really look at the global situation with the global economy, we are really rely on those people from the other countries, human labor or, you know, natural resources and everything. We cannot now getting only focused on the small scale. We do have to, but at the same time, how to bring more consciousness into this different world, like world web. Even in your clothes, your glasses, everything you have in your office room, how many people engage and from where? No? So I think it's step before about not only localizing things, but one thing is now the reality in this capitalism from 2020. How can you really link this bit more in this world economy? That's the one thing is burning in me, which is another huge reality. So I hope like after this talk, whenever you eat like organic dates from somewhere, I don't know, of course you're trying to buy the local produce and the products, but how can you imagine them in other country and their life quality and their unfolding individual potential? Still, they are working for people in, because of the money they are work. Yeah. So just this one, I want to share this little message, and which is burning in my heart, and in this kind of the conscious supply chain kind of workshop. I hope I explained myself a little bit.
Yeah, maybe just to add on this, this is also the message we try to spread, and we try to communicate that in the end, we don't have to wait for anyone to make a change or to transform anything. In the end, it's on us to transform. It's on us. We have the power to make the right impact. And if I buy groceries, if I buy anything, or clothes, I can either, I can nowadays really make the decision to make the right impact. And I think this is, what we have to communicate. And I think also each of you is sharing this opinion, and maybe we can find, a way to collaborate in this as well.
Thank you, Nana. Thank you, Justus. I think I've seen Laureline wanting to speak. Laureline?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in, but each new intervention brings new ideas, so it's getting more and more complex in my mind. But and thanks a lot for all those very eye-opening interventions and for sharing all of this. What comes to me is that I don't think, what's very interesting to me is that this initiative is a global initiative. Like the CoFSA initiative is a global initiative. But what we see with this discussion today is that you can't bypass the local level, or the local level is actually the entry point to getting to a more conscious relationship to nature, to food, and to all the actors that are part of this food system. And in a way, I like this kind of tension or possible contradiction between the idea like we need a global movement, but of course it needs to start locally, which can be some kind of a cliche, but it's actually very deep if you really look at what's possible, if you're really engaged into relationships locally with food, with the producers, the farmers, with the indigenous people. And I think it's only through those type of interactions that you have locally that you can get a better understanding of what holistic thinking means, or like how to work with complex systems, and where you will get this entry point to other questions that we ask, like the question of like land rights or farmers' rights, indigenous people's rights, because in a way, unless you're in relationship with those people, those questions remain abstract. But once you're in relationship with them, it touches you, it moves you, like you have to do something about it. It's no longer, a concept or like something good. It's you see how much those 2 points are so linked and so relevant, and how you can't address one without addressing the other. And what I find fascinating is that all those experiences, you have very different, traditional wisdom that I mentioned. You have like indigenous people's knowledge and wisdom tradition, you've got the Islamic tradition, Buddhist tradition. And what's super interesting is that whatever the tradition you're in, with food and with this connection to the land, like you end up, connecting to the same type of reality, and this importance of connection and relationship, and they build and they grow. And so I just wanted to share this, how this local work and local connections are crucial, and maybe the key to avoid many of the pitfalls of more global thinking. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Laureline. I see Pavel has raised his hand. Maybe we can give you 2 minutes. And beautifully said. Thank you, Laureline, said Alana. Pavel?
Well, thank you. I think 2 minutes is all I need. Oh, sorry, Donna.
Yes. We have, unfortunately, to leave at sharp 5
sure.
For another call. I hope that's okay. You can also continue, but thank you so much for having us, and we are very much looking forward to connect more.
Thank you so much. It was great to have you, Nana and Justus. We'll be in touch. Take care. Pavel, maybe?
Yeah, just maybe now have 90 seconds, but that's okay. So it's been wonderful to listen. I'm new to this group and to this conversation, but so much of what has been said resonates with the work we're doing here at Schumacher College in England, particularly in the programs in holistic science and regenerative economics, and our new developing programs, regenerative food farming and food systems. And so I would really love to, to your question, Tomas, about, is there potential for local hubs for our experiential journeys? This is exactly the kind of thing that we're looking at, is developing ways that bridge the local experience that actually changes the paradigm, with global participants, as we're doing here, and making that accessible to students who are either coming to us or coming to you. And so these are absolutely conversations that I'd love to continue to be a part of. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Pavel. Yeah, indeed, we have already exchanged ourselves. You're developing these trainings globally, and mentioned the need for a local place where people who are receiving these trainings online can also connect and practice with local hubs. So I think definitely something we need to look at. So it's already our times. I don't think I will do a real closing, but yeah, really happy to have shared this workshop with you. I think it was great to hear all of your thoughts. We think it's important, and we're working on that to strengthen more this local grassroots perspective in our work in this Conscious Food Systems Alliance. So we'll keep bringing more people and follow this conversation. The next step, we'll have this workshop on Friday where we'll be discussing our vision of success. So that's another opportunity to come back to these questions. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day. It's great to be in touch with all of you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.